Level 1, Gym Newbie. The gym smelled aggressively of disinfectant and ambition. Leo Maxwell, usually at home amidst the comforting glow of his laptop screen, felt like an alien interloper. Every clank of metal, every grunt of exertion, seemed to amplify his own awkwardness. He'd envisioned a smooth transition into gym life, a silent montage of gains achieved with minimal social interaction. Reality, however, involved a lot more fumbling. He approached the weight machines with trepidation, a pamphlet titled Gym Etiquette for Beginners, clutched in his sweaty palm. The leg press looked particularly menacing, a chrome and steel beast he was convinced would laugh at his pathetic attempts. He fiddled with the settings, unsure which pin went where, finally settling on a weight that felt manageable. One rep, then another. His thighs burned, his face flushed. He glanced around, convinced everyone was watching him struggle. He decided to try the treadmill next. Walking seemed safe enough. He punched a few buttons, the belt started moving, and he began to walk. Then he increased the speed. And then a little more. Suddenly, the ground was moving too fast. He stumbled, flailing for the handrails, his phone flying from his grasp to land with a pathetic thud on the rubber floor. A few heads turned. Leo wanted the earth to swallow him whole. Mortified, he retrieved his phone, its screen miraculously intact. He considered retreating back to the safety of his apartment, but something stopped him. A rhythmic thwack echoed from the far corner of the room. Intrigued, Leo edged closer, past the rows of stationary bikes and elliptical machines. There, in front of a heavy punching bag, stood Sarah Jenkins from 4B. She was a force of nature, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, her movements precise and powerful. Each strike landed with a satisfying boom, the bag swinging violently. He'd seen her in the hallway, always polite but reserved, usually carrying groceries or a stack of books. He'd pegged her as a librarian, maybe. Definitely not a boxer. She was wearing a simple gray tank top and black leggings, the fabric clinging to the muscles in her arms and legs. Leo found himself captivated by her intensity, the way her brow furrowed in concentration, the beads of sweat glistening on her forehead. There was a grace to her movements, a controlled power that was both intimidating and alluring. He noticed the way her shoulders and arms were defined, the curve of her back as she twisted into each punch. He lingered, mesmerized, for longer than was probably appropriate. Finally, Sarah stopped, her chest heaving, and wiped her face with a towel. She turned, and her eyes met his. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, followed by a hesitant smile. "Hey, Leo, right?" she said, her voice slightly breathless. "Didn't expect to see you here." The boxer next door. The rhythmic thump-thump-thump of the heavy bag was the only thing grounding Leo. He clung to the treadmill handrails, pretending to scrutinize the calorie counter, but his gaze kept drifting towards the boxing ring. Sarah. She moved like water, a fluid dance of jabs and hooks. He'd seen her unloading groceries from her beat-up Camry countless times, never imagining this intensity resided beneath the surface. He wiped his sweaty palms on his already damp shorts, the cheap fabric clinging uncomfortably. This was ridiculous. He'd been coming to this gym for a week, mostly sticking to the elliptical and avoiding eye contact, and now he was working up the nerve to talk to his neighbor. His much more intimidating neighbor. Taking a deep breath, he hopped off the treadmill, his legs feeling strangely shaky. He walked towards the ring, the scent of sweat and leather growing stronger with each step. She was taking a water break, her chest heaving, dark hair plastered to her forehead. That was incredible," Leo stammered, cringing internally at his awkwardness. Sarah blinked, recognition flickering in her brown eyes. "Leo, right? From next door." She raised a gloved hand, wiping her brow. "Didn't peg you as a gym rat." He flushed. "Trying to be. You're really good." A small smile played on her lips. "Thanks. Years of practice." She unscrewed the cap of her water bottle, taking a long swig. Keeps me sane. Lawyer by day, boxer by night. Lawyer? Wow. He pictured her in a courtroom, the same focused intensity she displayed in the ring. It suited her. Seemed stressful. Understatement of the century. This, she gestured towards the bag with her chin, is my therapy. My way of hitting back without getting disbarred. He chuckled, a little more relaxed now. I could use some of that therapy. I mostly just hit the treadmill and feel guilty about the pizza I ate last night. Sarah studied him for a moment, her gaze surprisingly direct. You look like you could use a good workout and a new hobby. Ever thought about trying it? His eyes widened. Boxing? I wouldn't even know where to start. She shrugged, a glint in her eye. Everyone starts somewhere. I could show you some basics, if you're interested. Nothing fancy, just footwork and maybe a jab or two. Leo hesitated, then a grin spread across his face. Really? I'd love that. The idea of learning from her, of being that close, sent a nervous flutter through his stomach. The pizza guilt had officially vanished, replaced by something far more potent. All right, Sarah said, her smile widening. Meet me here tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. Wear comfortable clothes and bring some hand wraps. We'll see if you have any hidden knockout power. First round, sparring and stumbles. The bell above the gym door jingled as Leo tentatively stepped inside. The air hung thick with the smell of sweat and liniment, a scent that usually sent him running in the opposite direction. Today, though, Sarah Jenkins had promised a training session. He spotted her immediately, a splash of vibrant orange amidst the gray of the punching bags and the muted colors of the equipment. She was already bouncing lightly on the balls of her feet, a picture of coiled energy. Leo. Glad you made it, she called out, her smile warm and genuine, easing some of his anxiety. Yeah, well, he mumbled, adjusting the borrowed boxing gloves, which felt enormous on his hands. Trying to be more active. Sarah chuckled, a melodic sound that reverberated through the gym. Trying is the first step. Now, let's see what you've got. She led him to a vacant ring, its canvas worn smooth. The ropes felt strangely intimidating. First, we'll work on your stance, she instructed, demonstrating a balanced, grounded posture. Leo attempted to mimic her, but his feet felt glued to the floor, his weight unevenly distributed. He stumbled, nearly tripping over his own feet. Sarah steadied him with a hand on his arm. Easy there, Tiger. Think of it like you're surfing, catching a wave. Surfing. Right. Leo had never surfed in his life. He adjusted his stance again, feeling like a newborn giraffe learning to walk. Now, punches, Sarah said, demonstrating a jab. The speed and precision were mesmerizing. Leo threw his own jab, a wild, telegraphed movement that lacked any power. Okay, a little less enthusiastic, Sarah said, suppressing a smile. Keep your elbow in, rotate your hips, and follow through. He tried again, this time aiming for a heavy bag that hung swaying gently from the ceiling. He missed. Completely. His fist connected with air, sending him lurching forward. Laughter bubbled up from Sarah. It's okay, it takes practice, she said, still chuckling. You're putting too much power behind it. Focus on accuracy first. For the next hour, Sarah patiently guided him through the basics. Jab, cross, hook. Each punch felt awkward, unnatural. His arms ached, his face was flushed, and he was pretty sure he'd pulled a muscle somewhere. He missed the bag more often than he hit it, but with each clumsy attempt, Sarah offered encouragement and gentle corrections. See? That's better. You're starting to get the hang of it, she said, after a particularly relatively successful jab. He managed a weak grin. I feel like I'm fighting the air more than the bag. The air is a worthy opponent, Sarah quipped, winking. Especially when you're starting out. But you're doing great, Leo. I'm impressed. Her words, combined with the endorphins coursing through his veins, gave him a second wind. He threw another punch, this time connecting with a satisfying thud. Maybe, just maybe, he could actually learn to do this. And maybe, just maybe, this whole experience was less about fitness and more about spending time with Sarah. The thought made him smile, a genuine, less awkward smile this time. Finding strength. The heavy bag swung like a pendulum, a dull thud echoing through the gym as Leo landed another clumsy jab. He winced, his shoulder already protesting. Sarah circled him, a hawk eyeing its prey, but her expression was patient. Relax your shoulders, Leo. You're carrying the weight of the world up there. He tried to loosen up, feeling the sweat trickle down his temples. Easier said than done. I feel like I'm going to break something every time I throw a punch. Sarah chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that cut through the gym's din. You're doing fine. Just takes practice. And maybe a little less enthusiasm. Think precision, not power, for now. He nodded, grateful for her steady guidance. Their training sessions had become a routine, a welcome anchor in his otherwise chaotic week. He was slowly getting better, less awkward, even managing a few decent combinations. But more importantly, he was starting to look forward to these hours, not just for the physical workout, but for Sarah's company. One evening, as they cooled down after a particularly grueling sparring session, Sarah's usual easygoing demeanor seemed to crack. She sat heavily on a bench, running a hand through her sweat-dampened hair. Rough day? Leo asked, handing her a water bottle. She took a long swig before answering. You have no idea. My boss, he's just impossible. He piles on the work, expects miracles, and then acts like I'm personally responsible for the company's quarterly reports being a shade off. I swear, sometimes I think he enjoys making my life miserable. Leo listened, trying to find the right words. He'd never been good at comforting people, but he genuinely wanted to help. That sounds awful, Sarah. I don't know what to say, but you're incredibly good at what you do. I can see it, and I'm sure everyone else can too. Don't let him get you down. She managed a weak smile. Thanks, Leo. I needed to hear that. Some days, it's just overwhelming. She sighed, staring at the floor. I used to love my job. It was challenging, but rewarding. Now, it just feels like a constant battle. She paused, her voice dropping slightly. It's not like I can just up and leave either, you know. Not with everything. She trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. He didn't press her. He sensed a deeper story there, a weight she carried that had nothing to do with spreadsheets and deadlines. He just sat beside her, the silence comfortable rather than awkward. Well, he said finally, trying to lighten the mood. At least you get to beat the crap out of me a few times a week. Stress relief, right? She laughed, the sound lighter this time. That's true. You're a surprisingly good punching bag, Leo. He grinned. High praise indeed. As they packed up their gear, Leo realized something. Their training sessions weren't just about him learning to box. They were becoming a sanctuary for both of them. A place where they could shed the weight of their day, forget their worries, and just focus on the rhythm of their bodies, the sting of sweat, and the quiet satisfaction of pushing themselves further. For him, it was the thrill of learning something new, for her, a momentary escape from the pressures that seemed to be crushing her spirit. Mixed signals. Leo fumbled with the clasp of his boxing gloves, the synthetic leather stiff and unfamiliar against his skin. Sarah patiently adjusted his stance, her hands warm and firm on his shoulders. Relax, Leo. You're tensing up again. Breathe. He inhaled deeply, trying to mimic her calm composure. The rhythmic thud of other punching bags and the squeak of sneakers on the polished floor usually faded into background noise, but today, every sound seemed amplified, adding to his mounting self-consciousness. He just wanted to get through this without making a complete fool of himself. "Looking good, guys," a cheerful voice chirped. Leo and Sarah turned to see Emily, the barista from the juice bar near the entrance, beaming at them. She was holding a clipboard, probably signing people up for one of the gym's challenges. "Training for the couples competition?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. Leo's face flushed crimson. He stammered, "Oh, no, we're just..." Sarah cut him off with a light chuckle. "Just friends. I'm showing Leo the ropes." She gave Emily a playful wink. "Though maybe we should consider the couples competition. We'd clean up." Emily laughed, a bright, infectious sound. "I bet you would. Well, good luck with your training. And let me know if you change your minds about the competition." She scribbled something on her clipboard and skipped off to bother someone else. An awkward silence descended. Leo avoided Sarah's gaze, focusing instead on the worn canvas of the punching bag. The air crackled with unspoken tension. He wanted to say something, anything, to diffuse the situation, but the words caught in his throat. Sarah cleared her throat. "So," she said, her voice a little too bright, "where were we?" "Right, jab, cross." The rest of the session passed in a blur of jabs and crosses, of Sarah's patient instructions and Leo's clumsy attempts to follow them. But the echo of Emily's innocent question lingered in the air, a persistent hum beneath the surface. Later, back in his apartment, Leo replayed the scene in his mind. Was it just his imagination, or had Sarah seemed a little flustered too? He kicked off his sneakers and flopped onto the sofa, staring at the ceiling. He really enjoyed spending time with Sarah. Her encouragement, her easy laugh, the way she made him feel. He'd been trying to ignore it, telling himself it was just gratitude, just friendship. But Emily's comment had thrown everything into sharp relief. Was it possible that Sarah felt something too? The thought sent a jolt of nervous energy through him. Meanwhile, Sarah leaned against the counter of her apartment, a half-empty glass of water in her hand. Emily's words echoed in her mind. Couples competition. The idea was absurd, ridiculous. And yet, a tiny, traitorous part of her had enjoyed the thought. She glanced at her reflection in the darkened window. 40 years old. Divorced. Definitely not the right match for a guy like Leo. But still, the image of them training together, laughing, fighting side by side, it was a pleasant one. She sighed, rinsing her glass in the sink. Best to nip those kinds of thoughts in the bud. Leo was a friend, a student. Nothing more. She had to remember that. Vulnerability and truths. Leo gasped, his lungs burning, the thin air in the boxing ring doing him no favors. Sarah circled him, a hawk observing a clumsy mouse. He flailed at the heavy bag, his punches landing with pathetic thuds. He felt ridiculous, a gangly puppet jerked around by invisible strings. Again, Sarah said, her voice surprisingly gentle despite his abysmal performance. "Remember what I said. Feet planted, rotate your hips, and follow through." He tried, but his muscles screamed in protest. Sweat plastered his dark hair to his forehead, stinging his eyes. He missed the cool, sterile air of his apartment, the comfortable hum of his computer. What had possessed him to think he could do this? Finally, Sarah called a halt. "All right, Maxwell, that's enough for today. You pushed yourself." She tossed him a towel. He gratefully wiped his face, the rough cotton a welcome sensation. They sat on the bench outside the ring, the sounds of grunting weightlifters and rhythmic thwacks echoing around them. Leo avoided eye contact, acutely aware of how utterly out of his depth he was. Sarah sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "You know," she began, her voice soft, "it's funny. I spend all day in here, surrounded by strength, by confidence, and sometimes I feel like the biggest fraud." Leo looked up, surprised. Fraud. You're amazing, Sarah. She shook her head, a wry smile playing on her lips. Amazing at punching things, maybe. But, dating? Relationships? I'm a disaster. I haven't been on a proper date since the divorce. And even before that. She trailed off, picking at a loose thread on her glove. What's wrong with dating? Leo asked, genuinely curious. He'd always assumed someone as vibrant and capable as Sarah would have suitors lining up at her door. She hesitated, then met his gaze. It's complicated. I'm not exactly 22 anymore, Leo. And sometimes, I worry that I'm just old. That I've missed my chance. He frowned. He'd never considered the age difference a barrier. That's ridiculous. You're vibrant, Sarah. You're strong, and funny, and you see things that other people miss. Her eyes searched his, a vulnerability there he hadn't seen before. And what about you, Leo? You're just starting out. Don't you want someone younger? Someone without all the baggage? He reached out, covering her hand with his. Her skin was warm, calloused, familiar. Sarah, I value you for who you are. Not for your age, not for your past. I like spending time with you. You make me laugh. You push me to be better. That's what matters. The words felt clumsy, inadequate, but he hoped they conveyed the truth in his heart. He squeezed her hand gently, offering a silent promise of acceptance and understanding. The gym, with all its clamor and pretense, faded into the background, leaving only the quiet truth of their connection. Stepping into the ring. The metallic tang of sweat hung heavy in the air as Leo finished his last set of shaky push-ups. He flopped onto the mat, chest heaving, and watched Sarah effortlessly skipping rope across the ring. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight braid, a few strands escaping and clinging to her damp forehead. The rhythmic slap of the rope against the canvas was a constant, hypnotic beat. He sat up, his muscles screaming in protest. Sarah, he called out, his voice raspy. She stopped skipping, the rope falling still. Yeah, Leo. She wiped her brow with the back of her gloved hand, her expression open and encouraging. He took a deep breath. I'm going to enter the silver gloves. The rope clattered to the floor. Sarah stared at him, her eyes widening. What? Leo, are you serious? Yeah, I am. The sign-up sheet's been up for weeks. It's next month. He tried to sound confident, but his voice wavered slightly. The gym suddenly felt very hot, the rhythmic thud of heavy bags being pounded a judgment on his audacity. Sarah stepped out of the ring, her usual calm replaced by a flicker of something akin to worry. Leo, you've only been training for a few weeks. The silver gloves is an actual competition. People get hurt. I know, he said quickly, scrambling to his feet. But I've been working hard. And you've been an amazing trainer. I want to push myself. See what I can do. He avoided her gaze, focusing on the worn patches on the floor. She crossed her arms, her brow furrowed. This isn't some kind of dare, is it? Or some impulsive thing? He finally looked up at her, meeting her intense gaze. No. It's not. You've inspired me, Sarah. Seeing you in the ring, how strong and focused you are, it's made me want to be better, stronger. I want to show you that I'm serious about this, about everything. The last word hung in the air, unspoken but heavy with meaning. The gym noise seemed to fade. Sarah's expression softened, the worry lines around her eyes easing. She studied him for a long moment, her gaze searching. He stood his ground, trying to project an image of confidence he didn't quite feel. Finally, she sighed. All right, Maxwell, she said, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. But if you're going to do this, you're going to do it right. No half measures. Twice the training. We're talking dawn runs, sparring sessions until you can barely stand, and a diet that would make a rabbit jealous. Are you ready for that? Leo's heart leaped. Absolutely, he said, the adrenaline pumping through him. He felt a surge of exhilaration, a mix of fear and excitement that was intoxicating. He was stepping into the ring, and not just the one in the gym. Fight night. The bell exploded, a harsh clang that rattled Leo's already frayed nerves. Across the ring, Marcus the Mauler Malone pranced, a lion with a cornered gazelle. A monolith of hardened muscle, Marcus oozed arrogant confidence and barely leashed aggression. His knuckles popped like firecrackers in the suddenly hushed gym. Leo's throat constricted, his mouth desert dry. This wasn't the agreed plan. Sparring Sarah held no comparison to this. Time for a waltz, Buttercup, Marcus rumbled, his voice vibrating through the floorboards. Leo lifted his gloves, the unfamiliar weight a burden on his limbs. Sarah's mantra echoed in his head, jab, evade, protect. But Marcus was already a tempest of fists and elbows. Leo parried the initial onslaught, each impact a burning slap. Then, a right hook detonated against his temple, sending a supernova of pain through his skull. He faltered, his vision fragmenting. Sarah's voice cut through the roaring static in his ears. Footwork, Leo. Guard up. You've got this. Her pep talk sparked a flicker of defiance. He retreated, seeking precious space, but Marcus was relentless. Another strike landed, compressing his ribs, expelling his breath in a ragged gasp. He crashed to the canvas. The referee began the count. 9. Leo scrambled upright, his legs unsteady stilts. He found Sarah at ringside, her face a study in concern, her eyes gleaming with unwavering faith. He had to continue. The bell shrieked again, and the battering resumed. Leo was overmatched, undersized, and outskilled. He was slammed down twice more that round, each landing a more brutal reminder of his limitations. With each blow, doubt whispered insidious poison in his ear. What madness possessed him? He wasn't a fighter, he was a blunderer in borrowed gear. But then, inevitably, his gaze snagged on Sarah's. No shouted commands now, just the barest, almost imperceptible nod of faith. And that sustained him. A silent message, I know you can. He kept moving, kept shielding, kept launching punches, though most glanced harmlessly off Marcus's mountainous arms. Exhaustion consumed him, his body a symphony of protest, but surrender remained unthinkable. He ran on fumes and the unwavering determination not to disappoint Sarah. Finally, the bell delivered its merciful reprieve, ending the round. Leo stumbled back to his corner, collapsing onto the stool like a puppet with severed strings. Sarah materialized, gently blotting his face with a towel, her touch surprisingly tender. You're doing incredible, Leo, she murmured, her voice sincere and encouraging. Just one more round. Can you give me one more? He met her gaze, saw the worry clouding her features, the unshakable belief shining behind it. He nodded, his throat choked with emotion. The final round dissolved into a haze of agony and depletion. Leo understood he was failing, spectacularly. But he persisted, fueled by Sarah's unspoken encouragement. He absorbed the punishment, he continued to move, he maintained his guard, however shaky. When the final bell echoed, Leo remained standing, a testament to sheer stubbornness. Marcus raised his arms in exultation, a triumphant bellow erupting from his chest. The referee hoisted Marcus's hand, an official declaration of the obvious. Leo didn't require the confirmation, he knew. He turned to Sarah, bracing for disappointment. Instead, he discovered pride blazing in her eyes. She gifted him a radiant, genuine smile that banished the pain and humiliation. You weathered 3 rounds, Leo, she stated, her voice brimming with admiration. Against Malone. That's more than most can claim. He offered a feeble smile in response. He might have. Beyond the bell. The bell's echo faded, leaving a strange quiet in the gym. Leo, still flushed from the sparring match, fumbled with his gloves. Sarah, leaning against the ropes, watched him with a warmth that made his stomach flip. He felt exposed, not just physically after all the exercise, but emotionally. He hadn't imagined he'd make it through a single round, let alone the whole session. "You were incredible, Leo," Sarah said, her voice a low hum that seemed to vibrate through him. "Really? I was so proud of how you kept going, even when you were tired." He managed a weak smile. "I mostly just tried not to get knocked out." She laughed, a bright, genuine sound. "There's more to it than that. You showed guts. And you listened. That's more than half the battle." She stepped into the ring, the canvas barely giving under her light frame. She stood before him, her hazel eyes locking onto his. The air crackled, thick with unspoken words. He swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. "Leo," she started, her voice softer now, almost hesitant. "These past few weeks, training you, it's been more than just training." He knew. He'd known for a while. The way his heart leaped every time she called his name, the electric tingle when their hands brushed adjusting his stance, he'd felt it all. But he'd been too scared to acknowledge it, afraid of misreading the signals, of ruining their, whatever this was. He began, then stopped, unsure how to articulate the jumble of emotions swirling inside him. Sarah reached out, her fingers gently touching his cheek. The contact sent a jolt through him. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "I know there's an age difference. It's something I've thought about." He caught her hand, holding it against his face. Her skin was warm, a grounding presence. "It doesn't matter, Sarah. Not to me. I think I'm falling for you." The words tumbled out, raw and honest. A slow smile spread across her face, lighting up her eyes. "Good," she breathed. "Because I'm pretty sure I'm falling for you too, Leo." He lifted his other hand to cup her face, his thumbs tracing the curve of her cheekbones. He leaned in, his heart pounding against his ribs. Her gaze held his, questioning, hopeful. He closed the distance, his lips meeting hers in a tentative, feather-light kiss. It was soft, hesitant at first, then deepened, becoming more certain, more passionate. It tasted of sweat and hard work, of unspoken desires finally given voice. He tangled his fingers in her hair, pulling her closer, lost in the sweetness of the moment. The world outside the ring faded away, leaving only them, suspended in a bubble of warmth and possibility. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the gym seemed brighter, the air cleaner. "So," he said, a nervous laugh escaping him. "What happens now?" Sarah grinned, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Now," she said, "we figure it out."